Now, tonight, Nyla Small of the Door County Historical Museum will inform us about rural schools in northern Door County. I know many of us attended a rural school, including myself. When the Bailey's Harbor School added 2 rooms in the early 1950s, it became the first 4-room rural school in Wisconsin. And I challenge you to say 4-room rural school. Most of our teachers, by the time I was there in the 50s, were educated at normal schools, which had a 2-year teacher training program. In fact, I never had a teacher with a 4-year degree until I got to high school. It was believed that rural schools should fit country life, and teachers should be trained with that in mind, especially people who came from cities and they wanted them to incorporate themselves into the style of country living. And also, teaching all 8 grades in one room, or 4 grades as the case may be, required a special kind of classroom management, not to mention being the janitor, building the fire in the morning, and maybe running the 4-H club. Nothing was too much to ask. When my mom taught at North Bay School in the 1930s, she used to tell us that she would drive as far as she could in the winter and often had to ski in the rest of the way. And I thought that was pretty rugged. But last week I was reading in the historic newspapers about an earlier teacher from Bailey's Harbor, Gelson Spring. He lived in town here, and he walked 7 miles to the school and back every day. When he arrived, I'm sure he had to build a fire. So it's a fascinating topic, and I think that those early rural teachers were a very hearty, dedicated lot. Nyla is very passionate about her topic. I am amazed as I look through the notebooks that she has compiled on our northern Door rural schools. The amount of information there is staggering. So I am sure that you're going to enjoy the presentation. Nyla?
Thank you. I just want to also say that besides the Northern Door schools, the Door County Historical Society, Door County Historical Museum also has books on the central schools and on Southern Door schools. We have done a lot of research on all of them. And we had a lot of help from the government center finding them on the maps and identifying where they were and when. Some of the early schools were, in 1948, Washington Island had a first school. And in 19, I'll probably do that all night long. In 1854, there was a private school in Ephraim taught by Miss Pauline Larson. And also, there was a schoolhouse at Chambers Highland. In 1857, there was a schoolhouse at Gibraltar. Then in 1862, Milton E. Lyman became the first superintendent of schools in Door County, receiving a salary of $350 per year. Now, another thing that Milton had to do to go to see all these schools is he had to walk. They would put a notice in the paper when they would be doing inspections of the school districts. And I think down towards the bottom here, it's kind of interesting. It says, the attention of schools district clerks is invited to the following questions and a prompt answer requested. Have you a school in your district? Has your teacher been examined? Do you have a copy of Webster's dictionary? Do you have a register and school code? Do you receive the Journal of Education? And what is your teacher's name? Then also, they'd put a notice in there when they'd be coming around to examine, do examinations of teachers. And this examination would be they'd be examined on orthography, writing, reading, arithmetic, geography, grammar, written and oral questions. First, rural schools were typically log buildings like the one on the bottom here. And they had simple basic furnishings. We don't have any photos, at least yet, of any of the insides of the real early schools, but this is one we did find. Many times the children sat on benches that were made of rough boards and resting on the wooden blocks. And the lighting, of course, would depend on the windows, and that was not always available either because glass was very expensive. So children really studied under less than favorable circumstances. Heat came from wood-burning stoves. What I'm going to talk about tonight are all the schools that were located in the Gibraltar area school. The only area that I will not be talking about on this map is the Jackson part, because they come under the middle schools.
I just want to see if I can get this closer to your mouth.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. Maybe here.
I'm going to begin with the town of Liberty Grove. The very first school in Liberty Grove was built in 1866-67. And the location of it is kind of, we don't really know exactly where it was located, the first school. It said, in one book, it said that it was on the only regulation road between Bailey's Harbor and Sister Bay, near the present Old Stage Road and Highway Z, which is where the Appleport School is located. This building was moved many times. It was located once on the shore near Sister Bay Motors, and then it was moved across the street by the town hall. And then in 1976, they decided to restore it, and now it is part of the information booth in Sister Bay. Liberty School was located had two locations. The first school, from 1873 to 1916, was located just north of Highway Q. And the building is still there. It at one time was a gift shop, and I believe it was Orphan Annie's. I think Annie Pyle had a gift shop there. But now I think it is just a private home. And where this little porch on the front is, there is a porch there like that. Then in 1916, they built a new school, and that's down on the corner of German Road and Highway 57. The Appleport School, which is on the corner of Old Stage and Highway Z. Kindergarten was held there till 1963. It closed in 62 to 63, and it opened again from 63 to 65, just long enough for before they could have them go to Gibraltar. Wildwood School is located on Old Stage Road. Am I right? The first school, one on the top, they had many names first. First it was called Byers School, then it was called Wildwood, then it was called, 1920, it was called Locust Grove, and then it went back to Wildwood. But the first one was located on the corner of Old Stage Road, and it faced Waters End Road. And then when the next school was built, the one on the bottom, it was built farther down the road on Old Stage Road, and it was torn down, and that is where the Liberty Grove Town Hall is now. It kind of sat behind it, I think. There was a school at Raleig's Bay. It was on the corner of Mink River Road and County Road ZZ. and it went from 1877 to 1925. There are no photos of it that I know of, but if anyone does have anything, we'd really appreciate, even if we had pictures of students that went there, that would be fun. Elson Bay School. The very first school in Elson Bay was held in a home that was just south of what is now the Pioneer Store. And then they built this school right on the highway, and it is now the Savory Spoon. It had been added on to several times. But in 1923, there were 5 new schools that were built in Door County. And 2 of them, one was Elson Bay School, and the other one was Newport School. This is the school I went to, actually, the one on the bottom. The Newport School started in 1880. And their first building faced, I'm going to slip to the next film. This is the picture in front of the first building that they had. And it had 2 doors. Boys went in one door and the girls went in the other door, which was very common, I believe, in those schools. Actually, this photo is from 1904-05. And the teacher at that time was John Brand. Many of you may have heard of him and know him, or knew of him, other family. And my grandmother happens to be on this photo too. I thought it was just neat. This is taken from the newspaper, and it's not a bad copy. I want to go back here. The Newport, in 1954, students, they disbanded the Newport School, and all the students went to Elson Bay. And it wasn't because the buildings were deteriorating or anything like that. It was just because of lower attendance in both schools, and they combined them. The village of Sister Bay at one time was part of the Liberty Grove district, but when they became a village in 1912, I gotta see my notes here. Then it just became the Sister Bay School. This school was built in 1909. And there were students there until 1983, even after the consolidation. Sad to say, this school was torn down about a year ago. These are the last teachers that taught at Sister Bay schools. Town of Gibraltar, which has Fish Creek School. Fish Creek had 2 schools. The first one was a log building, and it was purchased on a piece of property from Asa and Elsa Thorpe in 1859. Then they had a second school in 1868. Both those schools were sold, and the school was built in about the same area in 1921. I think it's an interesting thing with these 2 schools. These 2 schools were sold. One became a tavern and one became a church. The one became the Catholic Church in Fish Creek, and the other one is Bayside Tavern. And as far as I know, that's still the same building. And the Catholic Church was sold, and I think that's a gift shop now. If it's not, it's a private home. It kind of sits, I think, behind the old school in Fish Creek. Now, this school also had school until after the consolidation, had classes there. Ephraim School. Ephraim had 3 schools. You don't hear too much about the first one, but the first one was located right near the Moravian Church. Whether that was a little log building, probably, don't really know. The second one is what they call the Pioneer School today. And then the third one was up farther up on Q, and it now is owned by the village of Ephraim for their municipal building. Blossomburg School District. Blossomburg was also called Park School, and it was located in what is now the Peninsula State Park. And it said it was right on the shore. I guess there is a spot where there still is a few little rocks and things that was probably a foundation, but this building also was moved closer into Fish Creek, and I do not know if that's still standing today or not. Maple Grove School. It was also called Norton School. It was located on, I think we used to call it BS Corners, wasn't it? And it became the VFW hall, but now it is a private home. And I think Susie Baldry could tell you more about that. Juddville School. Juddville that's located right on the highway at Juddville Road. The top photo is an early photo taken. And if you drive past this building today, going south, you will see this photo done in tiles on the side of the building. The gift shop that's there today have done a beautiful job at that. In fact, it's worth stopping and walking up and looking at it. It's beautiful. They also, I noticed, they have one kind of to the back. They make tiles and put the photos on like that. Chambers Island. We could not locate any school on Chambers Island on any of the maps, but in different information that we have from the Charles Martin book and also from the newspaper, it said there was a schoolhouse at Chambers Island. And it stands to reason it was, because it was quite a village at one time. Pershing School. Now here's another school I do not have a photo of. The only photo I have is of students in about 1955. It was also called Poland School, and it was joint Gibraltar, Bailey's Harbor, and it was also located almost on the Egg Harbor line. So it was really the three school districts. And it was a school until 1957, and that too is no longer there.
Where was that, Nyla, located?
They said it was sold to the Pyle family. I actually have got more in the book over there. I'll tell you later. It was right on the Gibraltar Bailey's Harbor line.
Yeah, I think it's where Dennis Pyle lives, isn't it?
Yes.
Dennis Pyle lives there.
I don't know. I didn't write the actual address of it down. I'm sorry. I should have done that. We'll share it with you later. Town of Egg Harbor. The Egg Harbor School. The earliest school was about 1910 on the top photo in the corner, and that was located on the little road that goes out to Alpine Resort near, right, you could see it. There was a photo we have that shows, you could see it from one end to the other when you're coming into Egg Harbor. The building, I believe, is gone now too. But then they built this beautiful stone building that it was said to be the best architecture in Door County. And we think it was the same stone as the stone that was used at the Catholic Church in Egg Harbor. It was a beautiful school, but they tore that down too. Horseshoe Bay School. There was a small village called Cooperstown where cordwood and, it's hard to see here, where cordwood was shipped out. And later on, there was a business started with ice, making ice. It was cut and stored and kept in confidence that the price would go up. And before they could sell, and then they were waiting for the price to go up to sell it. And by the time they waited, it had turned to water. So that must be what happened to the village too, I don't know. Carlsville School. Now, Carlsville was part of the Egg Harbor District, too. The first school was a log building. The second school was a frame building, and the third in 1919 was the one you see in the top here, which is now the winery. And they've added onto it so many times you can't really tell it's a school anymore, except when you walk in the front door. You do kind of think of it as a school. It became part of the town of Sebastopol in 1961. Sunny Point School. The one on the left is the earliest school that we have, and then the one on the right is the school that was there until it burned in 1958. And then the children from there went to Sebastopol. I think it's kind of interesting that the kids from Sunny Point went to Sebastopol before the ones from Carlsville went. There was a Pleasant Grove School. This was located about 2.5 miles east of Egg Harbor on School Road. And after the school closed in 1945, it was moved to some land over on, I think they said it was the Beekner Farm on County E. And as far as we know, the building is still there, but it is not recognizable. A few years ago, Judy Dexheimer took me to show me where this school had been. And the top photo is where I took a picture of, there's a pump and a little bit of, if I could use this thing, a little bit of the foundation right here, and then the pump. And then over here on this picture, you can see the pump here. So. The town of Bailey's Harbor. Bailey's Harbor had 3 schools. The first school was located in the Government Lot 2, Block 6. And Leanne just told me before they found out this afternoon that that was about where the post office is located. The next one was located near where the Catholic Church parking lot is. And that was destroyed by a fire. And back on the table, Leanne has a photo from the newspaper when that was destroyed. The new school was built up on Guy Street, and that now is a rental, bed and breakfast rental unit. Kangaroo Lake School. Here's another one we do not have a photo of, and I don't know if anyone has one, but it was from 1880 to 1907. And it was, as you can see, they said it was Section 25, Government Lot 4. And I think that's kind of at the end of the causeway, before you go on to,
west of that.
yeah, right, on the west side. Oops. Peninsula Center School. And that's located on County A. And that went until 1953. And is that still standing or not? It is? No, okay. Woodland School, District 3, was from 1900 to 1943. This is located north of Bailey's Harbor on Highway 57. It was also called Swamp School because it's near the swamp. And that building is still standing, but it's a home. It's been added on to, but you can still kind of see that it was a school. North Bay School. That was Junction 3. It was located, it was Bailey's Harbor and Liberty Grove School. This school was a log building, but they had covered it with siding. And I found a little note about who bought it, and I think it was kind of interesting. It was in a book called My Kind of Country by John Fraser Hart, and he tells that in 1952 his brother-in-law attended an auction at this school, and he bid $382 on it, which was all he had in his wallet. But he lost to a higher bidder. Then the bidder turned out to be insolvent, so he got the building. It was then moved 9 miles across the peninsula to Ephraim. And when they started remodeling it, it was when they discovered the log walls. But they only uncovered one. And as far as I know, this building is still there. His mother was a sister to David Stevens, so it's the Stevens property in Ephraim. Of course, I had to put this in because after we all went to these small schools, country schools, we took an 8th grade exam, and we came down to Sturgeon Bay, and we met at the high school, and we all walked across the stage and received our diplomas. And then we walked over to St. Joe's and had our picture taken on the steps of St. Joe's. This continued probably until this happens to be class of 60. Oh no, we graduated from high school in 60, it's 1956. I'm not quite sure how many years it continued, but I did find out that the city school never did this. This was only the country schools that did this. Then we went on to high school, to Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar High School was built in 1917, and the first graduating class was in 1920, and they had 3 students. They started out with 4.5 acres and purchased land 3 more times for a total of 21 plus acres. Now, I forgot to say earlier that many of the other country schools, before they became part of Gibraltar, also had high school in their buildings. At least they had 9th and 10th grade. I know they had it at Elson Bay. They had it at Wildwood. I believe they had it here in Bailey's Harbor. But before 1917, that's where they went. And after 1917, they could come to Gibraltar. Many students also went to Sturgeon Bay High School. I know that too, and lived down there. But it was not until 1950 that Bailey's Harbor, Liberty Grove, and Egg Harbor became a part of Gibraltar High School, meaning that all the schools came under one roof. Washington Island opened a private high school in 1919, and Sevastopol consolidated in 1924. By 1965 is when all the schools, was overall consolidation occurred at Gibraltar area schools, and when they all came under one roof. Before all classes were housed at Gibraltar, several of the rural schools were used for classes, and that's Elson Bay, Ephraim, Fish Creek, Appleport, and Liberty Grove. I wanted to just put in, at the end at high school, we all had yearbooks, and how it changed over the years. The first yearbook in Gibraltar was called the Gibraltar Gems. But then in 1924, they had a new name called the Rock. And then I'm not sure when it changed to the Viking, but the Viking is what it was when we were there. I couldn't resist. There's many teachers that everyone loved at school, but I couldn't resist putting Olga Wickman in. Olga was a teacher for over 40 years. These pictures are 40 years apart, but she was actually a teacher longer than that. She, actually my mother had her. I had her. All my siblings had her. And anybody that knows Jen Follingstead, she looks like her, doesn't she? So after we graduated from high school, and now on to new beginnings. I couldn't resist this too. Anybody that went to Gibraltar, this was our school song at the time we went to Gibraltar. They don't sing this one anymore. I know it was very difficult for bands to play. I think it was Coast Guard tune that we sang that to, but it was always kind of neat. This is our display that we have at the Historical Museum in Sturgeon Bay. As you see, it covers all the schools, starting northern door, central door, and then be southern door. It's kind of located in a corner, so it was hard to take a photo of the whole thing. In the research of this program, this is how we did it. We had to find all the places on the plat maps. And then we worked with Holly Hansen over at the Door County Real Property Listing at the Government Center. And she went and researched in all the books. So I have on the table over there the books with all that in. So if you want to know exactly where a school was located, you'll see it there. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nyla. That was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
And when I was speaking with Nyla prior to doing this program, when we started, we sort of have a similar interest, so it just keeps going on and on and on. And there are so many stories that could be told about each one of these individual schools. When she was mentioning John Brand, who was first taught at Newport School when he was 17, is that right?
Yes, he was 17, and they interviewed him. There's an article in the paper, it's over there, and he said he had 75 students at age 17 or 18, whatever it was.
I think he was 17.
How are you going to keep him? He kept them busy, though. He kept
Yeah.
them busy, and they loved him there.
That
and
was
then
his
it
theory,
said he had
keep
been
them
teaching
busy.
for 2 years, actually. It said he had been teaching already for 2 years, so they
Yeah.
started young.
Patty?
Nyla, I think the old Kangaroo Lake School is on the grounds of Waseda Farms now.
It's where?
On the grounds of Waseda Farms on down Logger Quest. And the book I wrote about Kangaroo Lake, I'm sure has a picture of the school, but it's in the present day, the inside, they have tried to refurnish it as a country school.
Oh, really?
But it's there,
Oh,
I'm
how
pretty sure.
fascinating. Okay.
Of course, Mike McCardle started teaching in a country school too, I believe, when he was very young.
Mike McCardle did, and recently our Historical Society has come into possession of a couple of autograph books from the 1890s, and one of them was actually John Brand's autograph book, 1892, I think. And I think it was a big fashion in those days, and coincidentally, both of these books belonged to rural school teachers. And looking up the signatories in the books, they were mostly their teacher friends or friends that they met going to teacher institutes, which they had to do to, promote keep their credential, to keep their certificate. Yeah, so that it's been kind of just a whole bunch of coincidences. But regarding John Brand, if you didn't have a chance to look, on that middle poster there is a picture of him as a young man, and also I scanned and blew up a little bit a booklet that he gave all his students at the end of the year. And it says compliments from your teacher, and it tells the school board, lists all the students' names. And then there's a very lovely, very sentimental poem, about all the things he tried to do, and now they're parting ways. And it's really very charming. We just came into that recently, too. Are there any other questions? Wait till I get there.
The Newport School, there seemed to be an awful lot of kids for the economic activity in that area. What was that, the sawmill or?
I'm not sure, but
Well,
I would guess.
1904, could have been the town of the village of Newport probably was still there then. I know by 1917, 18, well, my mother wouldn't remember that early, 20s, it was gone. I mean, it was just the ruins. But yes, there was a village there at Newport. And
How were the early schools funded?
I think they were funded, but the town boards would vote to have a school. And I believe they were funded essentially by the town. And stuff I've read in old records
Yeah.
indicates, well, and we got so-and-so to build a school, and a couple months later, this, this other guy was painting the school, and then soon, okay, the school is looking great, now we can use it. So I don't think it was the way it is today. But I do think the state of Wisconsin always had a very progressive and enthusiastic curriculum, that, especially for rural schools. I mean, anybody who went to schools, I'm looking at Bill and Julie somewhere, us.
Yeah.
I mean, we had picture study every month where they would have a fine art piece, and we would be guided in understanding it. And that all came through the state of Wisconsin. And even on the table over here, there are several items, things that teachers used to teach with and things that they produced as normal school students. And often, when we were in school at least, because there was still 2 grades in a room. When I went to school, when I went to Chicago, and when I was a teacher myself, and if somebody suggested you would have 2 grades in a room in our school, my gosh, the roof almost blew off the school.
now, when I went to school at Elson Bay, there were 4 grades to a room.
And that
there
was
were
more
many
usual.
all over.
More
there
usual.
Was, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I know when my mom was at Juddville School, there's a little picture there, she had all 8 grades. This was in the 50s. And there was no plumbing. In the 50s, we're talking, not 1850, 1950, So it varied a lot. And they had, I think, also, they would have alternate year studies. So you would, in the odd years, you'd study certain literature, and then in the even years, something else, so that you could teach 2 grades at the same time all the time. So there's a lot of stuff that went in. Lynn?
Yeah, I know that many of us who are here, we went.
Wait, Lynn, wait.
Many of you, looking around, I see a lot of people that did go to rural schools. And one of the things, and I know that they don't do it anymore, but I know in 7th and 8th grade, there was such a big emphasis on civics. We knew every legislator. We had pictures, I still remember, of John Burns and McCarthy. I mean, we had Eisenhower, all these pictures, and I think, we were really steeped in that. I mean, we knew our civics, in the 7th and 8th grade. And I'm just wondering, if there's an emphasis on that anymore.
I don't think there is, no.
Oh, yeah, the states and the capital, by gosh, you knew all that. And you know what? And I think all of you remember was the spelling bees we have and the geography bees. And, we really did, it was a lot of learning that went on with those kinds of things. And, I'm kind of sorry that our children didn't have some of those experiences.
Add to the fact that they've now done away with cursive writing. They don't teach cursive writing anymore either.
That's right. I think that's a big loss also. They also most schools don't have actual spelling classes anymore either. It's all kind of more esoteric now.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and
Well,
they spell
but,
check.
I mean, let's not
spell
talk
check.
down computers, because they're going to need those computers. But
Yeah.
I think it's sad that, some of these traditional things have kind of gone by the wayside. And I remember at Bailey's Harbor School here, and anybody who went there with Ernal Visti as the teacher knows what a cutthroat geography bee is. I mean, he would even tell you if you were wrong. It would just keep going down the line until somebody realized an answer was wrong, and then they would pick up that answer, and then they could move up to the top. I mean, yeah, it was quite an experience, a lot of fun.
My mother taught in rural schools in Missouri, central Missouri, when I was little. And one of the schools she taught in taught the first 4 grades every year. And one year they would teach 5 and 7, and the next year 6 and 8.
Oh.
So it was possible you could finish 4th grade, and then 6th, and then 5, and then 7, and then 8. Must have been very confusing.
It's an intriguing system, to say the very least. Any other comments from any of you rural school graduates? Artists?
Well, I was just going to say that most kids don't know how to write now either. It's all printing. Okay. Most kids don't know how to write now either. It's printing. And I was going to say that you have had the picture of Olga Wickman there. And of course, I had her at
Yeah.
Gibraltar.
Yeah, we all did.
And she could really embarrass you if you didn't
Well.
know what you were talking about. But her daughter lives in an apartment at
Right.
the Meadows
Yeah.
at Scand. And if you want to see another Olga,
I know.
look at her daughter.
That's, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Thank you.
Having the last name of Wickman, which I did, I didn't get away with anything either in high school. It would be, if I didn't know it, I said, Nyla, I was home last night. You could have come up. But she was a wonderful teacher.
Well, and she was your aunt, right?
My father's aunt, yeah.
Yeah, so your great aunt, yeah.
My great aunt, yeah.
Well, like Nyla, my mother also had Olga Wickman as a teacher in high school, as did I. And now, if my mom were still alive, she would be 109 years old. So we had her like almost 40 years apart. But I thought, I don't know, that always just amazed me. When I looked at my mother's old annuals is when I saw it. And I thought, good grief, you know, I can't believe that woman has been teaching this long. I thought she was excellent. I always liked her. She was fair. She let you know what was what. She's a good teacher.
Yeah, how many people here did go to rural schools in the audience?
Oh, how many people did go to a rural school here? Show of hands, please. Well, that
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah, it's quite a few of us, maybe a dozen. Yeah.
I just want to say, if anyone has any information that we would like to have at the museum, any photos of anything, I even like photos of kids in classes and things like that. We can come on down to the museum. I'll scan them in. Ginny is here too. She'll scan them in, and you can have your originals back. But we'd like to continue adding to the books. I actually have 2 binders on the Northern Door schools. I'd be very happy if I could have 1 binder for every school.
That would really be an accomplishment, yeah.
Well, it's wonderful research. People come in looking for something, we have it.
Right.
Neat.
When they were mounting their exhibit, what was that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
3 years,
3 years ago. I saw the little, request for materials. So I just threw all this stuff in shopping bags and went down there and left it for a week or 2 and then picked it up and they had all the information. So I guess this is one reason that we should be happy that they're all learning computers, because it makes the spread of information so fantastic. Things that you just could never dream of doing before. So, it's good and bad and everything. It's like a tale of 2 cities, best of times, worst of times. Lynn? Well, then you have to talk in the mic.
I'll just talk loud. When did the Bailey's Harbor School burn? The first, second one?
It's in you've got the photo of it.
Actually, I know that, because I was just reading about it.
Yeah.
It was December 18th, 1916. Yeah, and it was written up in the newspaper. All the newspapers in Sturgeon Bay had it. It happened very fast. They had just put in new furnaces, and something, I guess, was, it just went wrong. And they sent the kids to go through town, and everybody came to save the school. And it was such a racket that even the Coast Guard station came. Well, the life-saving station. Even those guys came over and they worked. Of course, it was just a bucket brigade. It was 1916. And they said that, even the most efficient bucket brigade couldn't have done it. They thought they had it out in the basement, and then the roof caught fire. So when they saw that there was no use, get this, the adults and the children went in the school to pull out as much furnishing and supplies as possible. And then, I mean, can you
Can you
imagine that
imagine
now?
that?
That was in the St. Mary parking lot. And then they went to the town hall, where the post office is now, for the rest of the year, and they got what's now Orphan Annie's. They got that built in 1917. Well, if it isn't the parking lot, it was next to the parking lot, but it's right in that area, yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, there is a little space between the restaurant and the parking lot, between the Door Deli and the parking lot, and I know that house is old. But we can look at pictures, because you can see the house next door to the north, and you can kind of see the windows they're not just plain. They've got a little pediment on top.
It's lot 3, block 3,
There
if that
you go.
means anything.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, and now we have a plat map, well, not a plat map, but it shows the Bailey's Harbor land parcels. And I have one over here that shows where that first school was. And Nyla told me it was block 6, lot 2, or lot 2, block 6. And so it was pretty easy to see where that was. I always wondered. And my guesses were just all wrong. So is there anything further?
Egg Harbor School number 1, everybody that went was invited to a reunion this summer.
Yes.
They collected a lot of material.
Judy Dexheimer has done a wonderful job of that, and we do have most of her writings that she has.
Well, you have done an incredible job, Nyla.
Well, I just skimmed over things. There's many,
But I
many
mean,
more
well,
things
it was,
that they could, yeah.
you could only summarize, or we'd be here till tomorrow.
You'd be bored still.
But I mean, when I look at the volume of work that you've created over there, it's amazing. And I thank you so much for going to the trouble
you.
for us.
Thank you. Thank you.